G'day World Wide Web, Lew Dub with the world's most detailed preview of the Gold Cup at Royal Ascot. The race, for the unaware, is over 4,000 metres. That's 2.5 miles. Yowzers. And unlike Australia's most famous and important race, the Melbourne Cup, the Gold Cup is laden with multiple winners. The race has been run since 1807, and in the 200 plus year history, there have been 22 horses win the Gold Cup more than 2 times. Sagaro and Stradivarius won it 3 times. Yates won the race 4 times. There was actually a horse called Anticipation who won the Gold Cup twice, but with a 3-year gap in between. That was back in 1816 and 1819. Here's the outline of the show. We'll go through each of the runners, but at intervals. I'll pause and look at some of the key races via freeze frame, and hopefully that helps you make a more informed selection. But let's start by looking at previous winners. I've gone back 17 years to when Yates started his phenomenal 4 years of dominance. He won that last race at 8 years of age. And on the screen you can also see the lead-up race that each horse has used. Probably the most significant trend over the 17 years is that horses that win the Gold Cup won their last race. 13 out of the last 17 have done that. It's also quite common for winning horses to come into the contest backing up off a race in Ireland, either the Vintage Crop or Savile Beg Levmos. Some, like Kyprios, ran in both of those races. And before we get any further into the show, make sure you take a look at the video description if you'd like to see some full race replays. Before we get stuck into each of the runners, here's a little clue as to the colour-coded form content I provide. Each horse will have their last 4 runs on screen, and you'll be able to ascertain what track conditions the race was run in via the colour of the font. Brown standing for heavy tracks, blue for soft, green for good, and so on, etc, etc. Also, please, before you bet, make sure you look at one of the reputable form guides, such as the Racing Post, Racing TV, or Sporting Life. There's a link in the video description to those websites. And that's just in case there's an error in my work. In one of my recent race previews, I'd typed that one of the horses had raced in a field of 217 runners, so look out. Here's a quick look at the course layout. The Gold Cup start is way back around the 1300 metre start on the straight course, so the contenders have more than 1 kilometre to find their positions before the first turn. They then start a descent down to the far corner, Swinley Bottom. Not long after that turn, they start a steady climb and continue uphill until about halfway down the home straight, where they finally get some relief just before the finish line. Big call. This 6-year-old based in France is trained by Christophe Furland. I find it surprising he's entered. He has run over 3,100 metres and won recently, but at Group 3 level. When he did step up to Group 1 in October of 2022, he failed. Though he did strike heavy ground on that day. There are too many question marks regarding quality and a longer trip though. He's not the worst, but I can't see him winning. Broome, the durable 7-year-old trained by Aidan O'Brien, had an unexpected win in the Dubai Gold Cup over 2 miles back in March of this year. It was only the second time he'd been over 2 miles. The previous occasion he got a soft track and finished last back in 2020. He has won at the track. He did that last year at this meeting in the Group 2 Hardwick Stakes over his regular distance of 1.5 miles. My concerns for Broome are the last start, where he failed to beat home Eldar Eldarov, but young Eldar was carrying 1 kilo more. Coltrane, well, this guy has the runs on the board. He really burst onto the scene last year with wins at listed level and Group 2 over 2 miles and 3,600 metres respectively. He's won at Royal Ascot. He did that during last year's Royal Ascot Carnival over 4,000 metres on good to firm ground. His last win stamped his Group 1 credentials, winning the Group 3 Sagaro by more than 4 lengths. He gets a drop in weight, and at 3 to 1 or $4 in tote speak, this looks like good value. Here's a bit of freeze frame content. from the Sagaro Stakes. The Sagaro Stakes. Coltrane eases back early, while Gold Cup outsider Nate the Great is on pace with Trushan and Wise Eagle a couple of lengths back. At the 600, Trushan had already rushed to the lead, with Coltrane just getting going. Eventually, he proved way too good, winning by 4 lengths to Wise Eagle, with Trushan straggling home for 4th. Lone Eagle. This guy looks to be one that never fulfills his early promise. He went oh so close in the Irish Derby of 2021, going down by something like a head to Hurricane Lane. Since then, though, he's had 6 starts and hasn't finished as close as he did on that day, even in listed company. This will be the first time beyond 2,700 metres, so it is a fair step into the unknown. If you're looking for positives, his last start was a big improvement in terms of how close he was to the winner. That was the Group 3 Ormond Stakes, where he was second. Nate the Great. Well, this guy has had plenty of racing, 36 starts for the 7-year-old. He actually had 10 starts last year, which is very uncommon for Northern Hemisphere types. His career highlight would have been his win in the listed Rose Bowl Stakes, but it's most important to note he stepped up to Group 1 in the Goodwood Cup last year and finished 19 lengths behind Kyprios and 15 lengths behind Coltrane. He is one of the likely frontrunners. He's trained by Andrew Balding, the trainer of the race favourite or equal favourite Coltrane. That may be something to remember. 6-year-old Subjectivist was out of action for close to 2 years after winning the Gold Cup in 2021. It was a commanding win of 5 lengths too. His first race back was the Group 3 Red Sea Turf in Saudi Arabia. He charged to the lead and pretty much pulled his brains out. Exactly a month later, he took on the Group 2 Dubai Gold Cup and ran a reputable 3rd, despite once again racing very keenly and being perched 3 wide for a significant portion of the 2 miles. If he improves further, and it's all about getting him under control, he's a big threat. Here's some freeze frames from that Dubai Gold Cup. The Dubai Gold Cup. Early on, Subjectivist pushed forward and travelled 3 wide on the first bend, while Broome got a cushy run in the midfield. Again, Subjectivist posted 3 wide before Broome swept past the tiring 2021 Ascot Gold Cup winner. Tashkhan. About 15 months ago, I thought this guy had a bright future, but since his promising 2021 season where he finished second to Trushan in the Long Distance Cup, he hasn't finished closer than 3rd. The last time he raced at Group 1 level was over this distance when he ran 3rd to Kyprios in the Prix du Cadran. Mind you, he was more than 20 lengths behind the winner, who was in another class altogether. I'm sure Connections will be hoping for some rain as well. Trushan. Well, this 7-year-old is one of the only horses in the field to have won at this distance. Back in 2021, he proved he was the real deal when he beat Stradivarius home in the Group 1 Prix du Cadran. In 2022, he had a decent season by most horses' standards, but he did get cast into the shadows by the all-conquering Kyprios in the Goodwood Cup, finishing 3rd, and then finishing 2nd in the Group 2 Doncaster Cup, behind one of his major rivals in this year's Gold Cup, Coltrane. He did square the ledger with Coltrane in their next meeting, the Long Distance Cup, at this track. However, in his 2 runs this year, he has failed as favourite, most significantly in his last start, the Sagaro Stakes, when Coltrane beat him by 7 lengths. He's known for preferring some cut in the ground, and in the Sagaro Stakes it wasn't soft, but it wasn't exactly firm. So it just may be that age is catching up with Trushan.
Standing next to the president again, next to a collapsed bridge here. And he is here to commit to work with the governor and the delegation to make sure that we get this fixed quick, fast as well, too. This is a president that is committed to infrastructure. Yeah, and then on top of that, the dual kind of law of the inflation bill that is going to make sure that there's going to be bridges all across like this, all across America getting rebuilt.
Wise Eagle is one of the outsiders of the field, and he is a bit of a fairy tale story. In 2020, his trainer was disillusioned, and former jockey Adam Nicol picked him up as only the second horse he'd ever trained. Since taking him on, he's had 11 wins. In his last start, he was second to Coltrane in the Group 3 Sagaro Stakes. Now, he did finish 4 lengths back, and there will be a 2.5 kilo swing in the weights favouring Coltrane. He can't win, but he's shown already he's better than some.
Yibir. Well, this 5-year-old had been off the track for almost a year leading up to his somewhat disappointing 4th in the Group 3 Aston Park Stakes, where he started favourite. Trainer Charlie Appleby, nonetheless, does say that he was impressed with that run. Overall, his 2022 season wasn't a failure. He had 1 win from 4 starts and never finished further back than 1 3/4 lengths. In 2021, he won 3 races on the trot, one of them being the Group 1 Breeders' Cup Turf. His best results have been on good to firm or firm ground, but I question why they're stepping this guy up to 4,000 metres. His pet distance had been 2,400, and he's never raced beyond 2,600. Is this an afterthought? Was it the original plan? Courage Mon Ami, or Courage Mon Ami. Okay, a 4-year-old that has never raced at listed level. Hell, he's had just 3 starts in his career, but he's undefeated and he's trained by John and Thaddy Gosden. Gosden was the trainer of Stradivarius, the multiple winner of the Gold Cup. That's the good news. The bad news is, this fella has never raced at any decent level. He's never raced beyond 2,800, and the horse who ran second to him in his most recent start then went on to finish more than 8 lengths 5th in his next run. Also, those races Courage Mon Ami has run in didn't receive huge ratings. So, next.
Eldar Eldarov, the fave or equal fave, depending on whose books you're looking at. He really established himself with a win in the Group 2 Queen's Vase over 2,800 at this meeting last year, on good to firm ground. Later in September of 2022, he won the St Leger at Doncaster over a similar distance. However, when he stepped up to compete against all-age opposition, he finished 14 lengths back in the Long Distance Cup, well behind the likes of Coltrane and Truchan. He returned in 2023 in May in the Yorkshire Cup over 2,800, and there he finished second behind Giavolotto, who is not a horse with a huge reputation. But to counter that, Eldar Eldarov was carrying 61 kilograms and received a very good rating. Plus, the race has provided 2 winners since. We'll take a look at that now with our freeze frame replay. The Yorkshire Cup. We see Broome taking up a posse just off the pace and Eldar Eldarov settling at the rear. And now, as the whips were cracking, Eldar Eldarov was slightly stronger than Broome. Echoes in Rain. Well, there's one in every group. Echoes in Rain is more well known for her prowess over the jumps. Her last 4 starts yielded 2 wins over the hurdles at Grade 1 for mares and a Grade 3. Her last start on the flat was a second in the Irish Cesarewitch over 3,300 in September of last year. We can reference that form courtesy of the winner Waterville, who then went on to finish last in the Long Distance Cup. That's behind Truchan and Coltrane. Now, it's not really definitive as a reference, as Waterville lost a shoe and it was wet in both the Irish Cesarewitch and the Long Distance Cup. And just to make things or the waters murkier around this horse's form, her last win over the jumps, which was her last start, was a comfortable 9 lengths on good to yielding ground. So the weather in the Irish Cesarewitch might have actually been a negative for her. It has been done before too. It's not unprecedented. Back in 2010, Rite of Passage had been racing over the hurdles and then took out the Ascot Gold Cup. Now, was there the quality of Coltrane or Subjectivist around back in 2010? I can't say. 4-year-old mare Emily Dickinson was the race fave a few weeks ago. Then she got destroyed in the Group 3 Savilbeg Levmos, finishing 3 3/4 lengths 6th. Last year she had raced in some Group 1s for fillies and mares and finished 4th and 6th. Then in October she won the Group 3 Lockbrown Stakes against all age opposition and returned in 2023 with a 5-length win in the vintage crop. So why did she suddenly come back to the field in her last start, the Saddlebag Levmos? The track surface. She was flattered by those heavy track conditions, and back on good ground she looks pretty ordinary. Perhaps Master Trainer Aidan O'Brien can work some kind of miracle. I'm not betting on that. You've probably picked up already that I like Coltrane, and to be honest, when I started doing my research for this race a few weeks ago, I was searching for a horse that could beat the Coltrane, the Sagaro Stakes winner. But then I looked at the price being offered for Coltrane. It was $4.50, and now still at $4. I think that's great value. If you like Eldarov, you're actually banking on progression. He was well beaten last time he took on the big boys, and though there have been 2 winners come out of the Yorkshire Cup that he raced in, Siskani and Quickthorn, they had both dropped down to a division or a lower division. I actually give Subjectivist more chance of surprising us. Enjoy the race.
Will commence again if you try to take our firearms.